Hi everyone, I'm Greta, and I'm here to talk about the themes of nationalism, imperialism, and defining group identities. But more specifically, I'm going to take a deeper dive to look at how the experiences of imperialism differed between the continent of Africa and the country of Japan in the late 1800s and early 1900s. These two regions had entirely different experiences with imperialism, so they make a good topic to compare and contrast. A few goals to keep in mind during this video are: number one, to understand the concept or definition of imperialism, and number two, to understand the impacts of imperialism in both regions of study. Using primary sources, we will view how imperialism inspired nationalism and other Western ideas in many people of Africa, while on the other hand, nationalism inspired Japan's imperialism. There are various effects of imperialism seen across the world, but the colonization of Africa is almost tragic compared to the turn towards imperialism in Japan after the Meiji Restoration. So what is imperialism? A quick definition of this term is the practice of extending the rule of a nation over various peoples by direct conquest or through other indirect means, such as gaining control over another nation's economic or political life. This often results in poorer countries with rich natural resources basically spoon-feeding their colonizers more wealth. And the means by which colonizers gain control over land is often through violence. So imperialism in Africa, sometimes known as the Scramble for Africa, was an extremely bloody series of military conquests made by European powers against African resistance. A British soldier in Kenya recorded this in his journal. He said, "I gave orders that every living thing except children should be killed without mercy. I then assaulted the place before any defense could be prepared. Every soul was either shot or bayoneted. We burned all the huts and razed the banana plantations to the ground." Likewise, in 1915, W.E.B. Du Bois said, "The methods by which this continent has been stolen have been contemptible and dishonest beyond expression. Lying treaties, rivers of rum, murder, assassination, mutilation, rape, and torture have marked the progress of Englishmen, German, Frenchmen, and Belgian on the Dark Continent." The continent had been carved into countries most notably by the results of the 1885 Berlin Conference, and the new borders involved no reflection of any ethnic or language differences within the region. They were formed simply for the benefit of the European powers. African societies had always been complex and fluid. The concept of a tribal Africa was a European idea formed to try to understand and rule their African colonies more efficiently. Among many other impacts of colonization was the formation of nationalism, tribal identity, and even an African identity in African societies. This happened both because the Europeans imposed the ideas on them, and they found it useful to organize themselves into a society that the West recognized. This image was printed in Egypt, and its critical view of British and French imperialism inspired nationalism amongst Egyptians. It shows the pointless killing and destruction in Africa, which encouraged opposition to colonization and a sense of needing to unite. Japan's experiences in the late 1800s and early 1900s were entirely different than those of Africa. Realizing that Japan was backward and needed to learn from Western knowledge, the country entered Meiji Restoration. They believed that modernization was the only way Japan could defend themselves from the danger of world powers and of falling victim to colonization themselves. A new social and political order, as well as a gain of Western education, allowed Japan to modernize through industrialization and an open international trade. Japanese loyalty to the emperor caused a high sense of nationalism, which combined with the need for more natural resources to motivate the country to expand as an empire. This call for loyalty was expressed by Japan's Ministry of Education in 1937, saying, "Indeed, loyalty is our fundamental way as subject, and is the basis of our national morality. Through loyalty do we become Japanese subjects." The country's success in the war with China in 1894 and 1895 only boosted that nationalism. A 2010 quote from historian James Huffman says, "More important than the victory was the explosion of patriotic fever the war ignited at home." By the war's end, Japan had become a different place, proud of defeating Asia's giant, confident in its military might, thirsty for more territory. This high sense of nationalism inspired Japan's imperialistic movements and thus helped the country become a major world power. As proved in this video, imperialism had massive effects on the countries and regions involved. For Africa, the process of being carved into new territories, colonized, and violently subdued was devastating to their societal structure, but it created a new sense of nationalism and African identity. In Japan, a growth in nationalism stimulated a move towards creating their own empire and put them on the map as a world power. In fact, many effects of imperialism in the 20th century remain relevant to this day.